The morning sun rose over the green fields of Kepler 442b, casting long shadows across the endless farmlands that stretched to every horizon. The Zephyrians called this world New Haven, and it lived up to its name. For 300 years, the peaceful plant-like beings had turned this planet into the garden of the galaxy. Their crops fed dozens of star systems, and their advanced farming methods were the envy of countless worlds. Vex Ka stood in his office high above the capital city, watching the morning shift of workers heading to the fields. His long, thin arms moved gracefully as he reviewed the day's production reports on his display screen. The harvest this season would be their best yet. Food shipments were already scheduled for 17 different worlds, including some of the poorest colonies. On the outer rim, the Zephyrians took pride in their work. They had never known war, never built weapons, never even raised their voices in anger. Their entire civilization was built on the simple idea that life should grow and flourish. Every child learned the ancient saying passed down through generations. A seed planted in kindness feeds the universe. Vex Ka's peaceful morning was shattered when his communication device began screaming with urgent alerts. The harsh sound filled his office as red warning lights flashed across every screen. He had never heard this alarm before. His hands trembled as he activated the emergency communication link. "Administrator Vex Ka, you need to see this right now," came the panicked voice of sensor operator Zek Neem from the orbital monitoring station. "We have massive contacts at the edge of our system. 200 ships, maybe more. They're big, and they're coming fast." Vex Ka felt his green skin turn pale. "Are you certain? Could it be a merchant convoy?" "No, sir. These are warships, big ones. I'm reading heavy weapons and military shields. The computer identifies them as Krillian design." The word hit Vex Ka like a physical blow. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Krillians. They were raiders, slavers, and destroyers who swept through peaceful systems like a plague. They took what they wanted and left nothing but empty worlds behind them. What could they possibly want with New Haven? "How long do we have?" Vex Ka asked, though he dreaded the answer. "At their current speed, they'll reach our planet in 6 hours. Vex Ka's mind raced. New Haven had 3 patrol ships for defense, small vessels designed to chase away pirates and smugglers. Against 200 Krillian warships, they would last maybe 5 minutes. The Zephyrians had no army, no weapons factories, no military training. They were farmers, not warriors. "Contact Defense Commander Yeltash immediately," Vex Ka ordered. "Tell him to prepare our ships for evacuation duties. We'll try to get as many people off-world as possible." "Sir, our patrol ships can't carry more than a few hundred people each. We have 12 million colonists on this world." The reality hit Vex Ka like a hammer. They couldn't run, they couldn't hide, they couldn't fight. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Zephyrians faced extinction. Meanwhile, on the far side of the galaxy, Lisa Chang sat at her monitoring station in Luna Base, Earth's primary communication hub. The night shift was usually quiet, with only routine traffic between human colonies and trading posts. Lisa spent most of her time reading reports and drinking coffee, waiting for her shift to end. At 0347 hours, her equipment picked up something unusual. A distress signal was broadcasting on the Galactic Emergency Network, a frequency reserved for the most desperate situations. Lisa had been monitoring space communications for 8 years, and she had never heard anyone use this channel. She put on her headphones and listened carefully. The signal was weak and filled with static, but she could make out the words clearly enough. It was in Galactic Standard, the common language used for trade between different species. "This is New Haven Colony calling any ships in range. We are under attack by a large Krillian fleet. 200 warships approaching our world. We have no military defense. 12 million civilians need immediate evacuation or protection. Please, anyone who can hear this, we are begging for help. We will share our agricultural technology with anyone who assists us. Please, help us." The message repeated every 30 seconds. Lisa quickly traced the signal's origin and found it came from a system about 40 light-years from human space. She had heard of the Zephyrians before. They were peaceful farmers who grew food for half the galaxy. They had never bothered anyone, never caused trouble, never even competed with human agricultural worlds. Lisa knew the rules. Humanity had a strict policy of non-interference in alien conflicts. They traded with other species, maintained diplomatic relations, and defended their own territory, but they didn't get involved in other people's wars. The galaxy was full of conflicts, and Earth couldn't solve them all. But something about this distress call bothered her. These weren't soldiers crying for help. They were farmers, peaceful people who grew food to feed others. The Krillians were coming to destroy them for no reason except greed and cruelty. Lisa made a decision that would change galactic history. She forwarded the distress signal directly to Fleet Admiral Jake Morrison's personal communication device, marking it as urgent priority. Then she kept monitoring the channel, hoping someone would answer the Zephyrians' desperate call. Admiral Morrison was reviewing fleet deployment reports in his office when Lisa's message arrived. He listened to the recording 3 times, his expression growing darker with each repetition. Jake Morrison had served in the human military for 35 years. He had fought pirates, defended colonies, and protected trade routes. He knew the sound of genuine desperation when he heard it. Morrison pulled up the tactical display showing human fleet positions. The closest battle group was Admiral Kate Sullivan's 7th Fleet, currently running training exercises near the Centauri system. They were about 30 hours away from the Zephyrian world at maximum speed. According to regulations, Morrison should forward this information to the diplomatic corps and let them decide whether to get involved. That process would take days, maybe weeks. By then, the Zephyrians would be dead or enslaved, and their world would be another empty husk in Krillian territory. Morrison had met Admiral Sullivan many times. She was tough, smart, and completely reliable. More importantly, she hated bullies almost as much as he did. If anyone could help the Zephyrians, it was Kate Sullivan and her battle group. The Admiral activated his secure communication link and sent an encrypted message to Admiral Sullivan's flagship. The message was short and direct. Proceed immediately to Kepler 442b. Zephyrian colony under attack by large Krillian fleet. You are authorized to use all necessary force to protect civilian population. Full discretion granted. Morrison out. As the message traveled through space toward Admiral Sullivan's fleet, Vexka stood in his command center watching the Krillian ships grow larger on his sensors. They would arrive in 4 hours, and still no one had answered their distress call. The Zephyrians were alone, facing an enemy they could never defeat. But unknown to Vexka, his desperate message had reached the one species in the galaxy that never ignored a call for help. The humans were coming, and they were bringing the full fury of a Deathworlder military with them. Admiral Kate Sullivan was reviewing combat training reports when the priority message from Fleet Admiral Morrison arrived on her personal display. She read it twice, then called for her senior staff to meet in the war room immediately. Within minutes, the flagship UES Titan buzzed with activity as officers hurried through the corridors. The war room filled quickly with Sullivan's top commanders. Captain Steve Parker from the destroyer UES Ranger took his seat next to Commander Lisa Wells from the cruiser UES Phoenix. Colonel Ryan Barnes, leader of the 3rd Colonial Marine Regiment, sat across from Dr. Helen Wright, the fleet's chief science officer. These were people Sullivan trusted with her life, and now she was about to trust them with the lives of 12 million innocent aliens. We have new orders, Sullivan announced, activating the main display screen. A star map appeared, showing their current position in the Zephyrian system, 40 light-years away. There's a peaceful farming colony under attack by a large Krillian raiding fleet. We're going to help them. Colonel Barnes leaned forward in his chair. How large is large, Admiral? Reports indicate about 200 warships. The locals have 3 patrol boats for defense. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the reputation of Krillian raiders. They were brutal, efficient, and completely without mercy. They turned peaceful worlds into slave camps and stripped planets bare of anything valuable. Dr. Wright spoke up first. Admiral, what do we know about these Zephyrians? Are they hostile to humans? According to our database, they're peaceful farmers who supply food to dozens of systems. They've never shown aggression toward anyone. Their entire civilization is built around growing crops and feeding other species. Captain Parker studied the tactical display. Our battle group has 12 heavy cruisers, 18 destroyers, and 6 support ships. Against 200 Krillian vessels, we'll be outnumbered 10 to 1. The odds don't look good on paper, Sullivan agreed. But we have advantages the Krillians don't expect. They've probably never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of. Colonel Barnes smiled grimly. They're about to learn. What's our mission objective, Admiral? Simple. Stop the Krillians from destroying that colony. Use whatever force is necessary to protect civilian lives. Questions? Commander. Wells raised her hand. Admiral, what are our rules of engagement? Do we try to negotiate first? Sullivan's expression hardened. The Krillians are attacking innocent farmers. There's nothing to negotiate. We go in fast, hit them hard, and end this quickly. Dr. Wright pulled up information about the Krillian military on her tablet. According to galactic records, Krillian ships rely heavily on energy shields and plasma weapons. Their tactics usually involve overwhelming smaller forces with superior numbers. That's their first mistake, Captain Parker said. They're used to fighting other aliens who think like they do. Humans don't play by those rules. Sullivan stood up and walked to the star map. We jump to hyperspace in 1 hour. Battle stations in 30 minutes. I want all weapons checked, all Marines ready for deployment, and all ships prepared for immediate combat. Colonel Barnes, get your people ready for ground operations. If there are Krillian troops on that planet, I want them removed. Yes, ma'am, Barnes replied. My Marines are always ready for a fight. As the meeting broke up, Dr. Wright approached Admiral Sullivan privately. Admiral, I've been reading some interesting information about humanity's classification in galactic databases. We're listed as Class 12 Deathworlders. Sullivan raised an eyebrow. What does that mean? Apparently, most alien species evolved on relatively safe worlds with stable climates and few natural predators. Earth is considered an extremely dangerous planet by galactic standards. The database says that species from Deathworlds develop superior physical abilities, advanced problem-solving skills, and highly aggressive survival instincts. Are we really that different from other species? Dr. Wright nodded. According to this data, the average human is stronger, faster, and more resilient than most aliens. Our weapons technology is also more advanced because we've spent thousands of years fighting each other. Most peaceful species like the Zephyrians have never developed serious military capabilities. Sullivan considered this information. So the Krillians might be in for a bigger surprise than we thought. Exactly. They're probably expecting us to behave like other aliens they've fought, cautious, defensive, willing to negotiate. They have no idea what humans are like in combat. Meanwhile, in the Zephyrian system, the Krillian fleet had arrived and taken position around New Haven. Admiral Thoxvar commanded the invasion from his massive flagship, a brutal-looking vessel bristling with weapons and decorated with the skulls of previous victims. Thoxvar was typical of his species. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with gray armored skin and yellow eyes, he had spent his entire career raiding peaceful worlds. The Krillians believed that strength was the only law in the universe, and they took pride in crushing anyone weaker than themselves. Send the standard surrender demand to the surface, Thoxvar ordered his communications officer. Tell them they have 1 hour to transfer all their agricultural data to us and prepare 50,000 workers for transport to our mining colonies. If they refuse, we start bombing their cities. On the planet's surface, Vexka received the Krillian ultimatum with growing despair. 50,000 Zephyrians would die in the harsh conditions of Krillian mining worlds within a year. Their agricultural knowledge would be used to feed Krillian military forces for future raids. Either way, his people faced extinction. Have we received any response to our distress signal? Vexka asked his communication officer. Nothing, Administrator. The galaxy is silent. Defense Commander Yeltash entered the command center with grim news. Our 3 patrol ships are ready to fight, but they won't last long against the Krillian fleet. We can maybe damage a few of their smaller vessels before they destroy us. Vexka made the hardest decision of his life. Do it. Make them pay for every life they take. Show them that Zephyrians will not surrender without resistance. The three small patrol ships launched from New Haven's orbital station and accelerated toward the massive Krillian fleet. They were tiny compared to the enemy warships, but their crews were determined to protect their families and homes. Thoxvar watched the approaching patrol ships with amusement. 3 little boats against my entire fleet. These farmers have courage. I'll give them that. Destroy them quickly. The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes. The Zephyrian patrol ships managed to damage 2 Krillian vessels before being blown apart by concentrated fire. Thoxvar ordered the bombardment of New Haven's orbital facilities to begin. As explosions lit up the space around their planet, the Zephyrians prepared for the end. They gathered in their homes, holding their families close and singing ancient songs about the beauty of growing things. They had lived in peace and they would die with dignity. But their sensors detected something unusual at the edge of the system. 36 new contacts had just emerged from hyperspace. The ships were smaller than the Krillian vessels but moved with deadly precision as they formed attack formations. Vexka stared at his display screen in amazement. Who are they? His sensor operator checked the identification signals. The computer says they're human ships, Administrator. I've never heard of humans before. Neither had Admiral Thoxvar, but he was about to get a very painful education about what happened when Deathworlders went to war. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Titan as her fleet moved into attack position. The tactical display showed the Krillian fleet spread around New Haven like a swarm of deadly insects. 200 enemy warships against 36 human vessels. The numbers looked impossible, but Sullivan had been fighting impossible odds her entire career. Open communication channels to both fleets, Sullivan ordered. All frequencies, maximum power. The communication officer nodded. Channels open, Admiral. Sullivan's voice carried across space to every ship in the system. This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Terran Defense Force, Krillian Fleet. You are ordered to cease all hostile actions against the Zephyrian colony and withdraw from this system immediately. You have 5 minutes to comply. On his flagship, Admiral Thoxvar listened to the human ultimatum with growing anger. A mere 36 ships dared to challenge his mighty fleet. The arrogance of these unknown aliens was beyond belief. Communications. Respond to the human fleet. Thoxvar snarled. Tell them they are interfering with legitimate salvage operations. If they do not withdraw immediately, we will add their ships to our collection. The response came back to Sullivan within seconds. She listened to the Krillian threat with a cold smile. Salvage operations? They're bombing civilian targets and threatening to enslave 50,000 people. Colonel Barnes watched the tactical display from his position in the Marine Command Center. Admiral, I have 2,000 Marines ready for deployment. Just give us a target. You'll have plenty of targets soon, Colonel. All ships, battle stations, weapons free. Let's show these raiders what happens when they threaten innocent people. The human fleet moved with deadly precision. The destroyers spread out in a wide formation while the heavy cruisers formed the main battle line. The support ships stayed back, ready to provide covering fire and rescue operations. Captain Steve Parker commanded the destroyer UES Ranger on the fleet's right flank. His ship carried the newest human weapons technology, including kinetic railguns that could punch through any known shield system. Targeting the lead Krillian cruiser, he reported. Range 2,000 kilometers and closing. Fire when ready, Captain, Sullivan replied. The first human shot of the battle came from Parker's railgun. The kinetic projectile traveled at nearly half the speed of light, hitting the Krillian cruiser before its crew even knew they were under attack. The massive slug tore through the enemy ship's shields and armor like paper, exploding out the other side in a shower of debris. The Krillian cruiser broke apart in a spectacular fireball that lit up the darkness of space. Admiral Thoxvar stared at his tactical display in shock. One of his heavy cruisers had been destroyed by a single shot from a much smaller human vessel. All ships, return fire! Thoxvar screamed. Destroy those humans! The Krillian fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma bolts and energy beams filled space as 200 warships concentrated their weapons on the human formation. The attack was massive, overwhelming, and completely ineffective. The human ships moved like dancers, twisting and turning through the incoming fire with impossible grace. Their advanced engines and sophisticated computer systems allowed them to dodge attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. When Krillian weapons did hit their targets, they struck advanced armor and shield systems that absorbed the damage easily. "Their weapons are pathetic," Commander Lisa Wells reported from the cruiser UES Phoenix. "These energy blasts can't even scratch our armor." Dr. Helen Wright monitored the battle from her station on the Titan. "The Krillians are using standard plasma technology. Our ablative armor is specifically designed to handle that type of weapon. Their shots are doing almost no damage." Sullivan watched her fleet tear through the Krillian formation like wolves among sheep. Human weapons were designed for fighting other humans, the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Against aliens who had never faced such advanced technology, the battle was completely one-sided. "Captain Parker, take your destroyer group and hit their left flank. Commander Wells, bring your cruisers around behind their main formation. Let's surround them." The human fleet split into multiple attack groups, each moving independently but coordinating their attacks perfectly. The Krillians had never seen such tactics before. Most alien species fought in large, slow formations that relied on superior numbers. The humans fought like a pack of predators, fast and deadly. Captain Parker's destroyer group smashed into the Krillian left flank, their railguns destroying ship after ship with single shots. The kinetic weapons were unstoppable, punching through shields and armor as if they didn't exist. Commander Wells led her cruisers in a wide circle around the main Krillian force, attacking from behind where the enemy ships were most vulnerable. Her heavy weapons turned enemy vessels into expanding clouds of gas and metal. On the planet below, the Krillian ground forces were preparing to begin the slave roundup when their orbital support suddenly disappeared. Colonel Barnes watched the space battle from his assault ship and grinned. "Marines, we have Krillian troops on the ground threatening civilians. Time to show these aliens what human soldiers can do. 1st Battalion, prepare for combat drop." Major Amy Rodriguez led the first wave of Marines toward the planet's surface. Her troops wore advanced powered armor that made them faster and stronger than any alien species. Their weapons were designed to stop human opponents, which meant they were devastating against weaker alien targets. "Remember, we're here to protect civilians," Rodriguez told her soldiers over the communication system. "The Krillians are slavers and murderers. Show them no mercy." The Marine dropships punched through New Haven's atmosphere like falling meteors. They landed in the middle of Krillian ground positions, deploying their troops directly into combat. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Rodriguez's Marines moved through the Krillian positions like a hurricane. Their armor absorbed enemy fire while their weapons cut down alien soldiers by the dozens. The Krillians were used to fighting peaceful species who had never developed serious military technology. Against human Marines, they were completely helpless. "This is too easy," Sergeant Bob Chen reported as his squad cleared another Krillian position. "These aliens fight like children." In space, the battle was already over. Half the Krillian fleet had been destroyed, and the survivors were trying desperately to escape. Admiral Thoxvar watched his proud armada burn, and finally understood what his intelligence officers had been trying to tell him about Deathworlders. "All ships retreat," he ordered. "Emergency jump to hyperspace." But Admiral Sullivan had anticipated this move. Her ships had positioned themselves to block all escape routes from the system. The surviving Krillian vessels found themselves trapped, surrounded by human warships that had barely taken any damage. "Krillian fleet, this is Admiral Sullivan. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Thoxvar looked at his tactical display and saw the truth. His mighty fleet was beaten, his reputation destroyed, and his career over. The humans had done in 1 hour what should have been impossible. "We surrender," he transmitted on all frequencies. "Please, we surrender." Sullivan's response was cold and final. "Prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with immediate destruction." The age of Krillian dominance in this part of the galaxy was over. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they had come to protect the innocent. The surrender of Admiral Thoxvar's fleet marked the end of the shortest war in galactic history. In less than 2 hours, the human battle group had completely destroyed or captured the largest Krillian raiding fleet ever assembled. The survivors sat in space, their weapons powered down and their crews waiting for the humans to decide their fate. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Titan, watching her Marines board the enemy flagship. Captain Ben Foster led the boarding party, his soldiers moving through the Krillian ship with practiced efficiency. The alien crew offered no resistance. They had seen what human weapons could do, and they wanted no part of fighting Deathworlders in close combat. Admiral Thox Var is secured, Foster reported over the communication link. The ship is under our control. We've also recovered the Krillian slave files. Looks like they were planning to take workers from 6 different worlds. Sullivan nodded, grimly. The Krillians weren't just attacking New Haven. This was part of a much larger operation to enslave peaceful species across the Outer Rim. Download everything, Captain. We need to know how many other worlds are in danger. On the planet's surface, Colonel Ryan Barnes surveyed the aftermath of the ground battle. His Marines had freed over 3,000 Zephyrians who were already marked for transport to slave camps. The rescued civilians sat in small groups, still trying to understand that they were safe. Major Amy Rodriguez approached the colonel with her report. All Krillian ground forces are eliminated or captured, sir. We lost 0 Marines. Enemy casualties are approximately 800 dead, 200 captured. Barnes shook his head in amazement. 2,000 human Marines against 10,000. Krillian soldiers, and we didn't lose a single person. No wonder the galaxy is afraid of us. A group of Zephyrians approached them carefully. These peaceful plant-like beings had never seen soldiers before, and the sight of armored human Marines was both frightening and fascinating. Their leader, a tall female with bright green skin and large golden eyes, stepped forward. Are you the ones who saved us? She asked in halting galactic standard. Yes, ma'am, Barnes replied, removing his helmet to show his human face. We're here to help. You're safe now. The Zephyrian fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. We thought we were going to die. Our children, our families. Everything we built was going to be destroyed. Then you came from the stars like guardian angels. Other Zephyrians gathered around them, touching the Marines' armor in wonder and speaking in their own language. These beings had lived in peace for centuries, growing food to feed other worlds. They had never asked for anything in return except the chance to live quietly and tend their gardens. Dr. Helen Wright arrived with a team of human scientists and translators. She had been studying Zephyrian culture and language during the battle, preparing for first contact protocols. Colonel, I'd like to speak with their leaders. We need to establish formal relations and make sure they understand what just happened. Barnes nodded. Go ahead, Doctor. These people deserve to know who we are and why we helped them. Meanwhile, in the capital city of New Haven, Administrator Vex Ka stood in his office watching the human ships in orbit. The same screens that had showed him the approaching Krillian fleet now displayed the vessels of his saviors. He still couldn't quite believe it was over. His communication device chimed with an incoming message. Administrator Vex Ka, this is Admiral Sullivan of the human fleet. I'd like to meet with you to discuss the situation and make sure your people are safe. Vex Ka's hands trembled as he activated the response. Admiral Sullivan, you saved our, entire civilization. We will be honored to meet with you. Please tell us how we can repay this debt. There is no debt, Sullivan replied. We came because you needed help. That's what civilized people do for each other. The concept was difficult for Vex Ka to understand. In his experience, no species did anything without expecting something in return. The humans had risked their lives and ships to save complete strangers, asking for nothing. It was unlike anything he had ever heard of. 2 hours later, Admiral Sullivan met with Vex Ka in the Zephyrian government building. The human officer was smaller than most aliens, but her presence filled the room with quiet authority. She moved with the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. Your people are safe, Sullivan told him. We've captured the Krillian fleet and rescued all the prisoners. They won't be bothering anyone else. Vex Ka studied the human carefully. Admiral, our databases show that your species is classified as Deathworlders. We didn't know what that meant until today. Your soldiers are incredibly powerful. Sullivan smiled. We come from a dangerous world. It made us strong, but it also taught us to protect those who can't protect themselves. Your people remind us of the best parts of civilization. You grow food to feed others. You live in peace. You create instead of destroying. The galaxy needs more species like yours. What happens now? Vexka asked. Will you stay to protect us? We'll establish a patrol base in your system, Sullivan promised. A small fleet will remain here to make sure you're safe. But more importantly, we're going to spread the word that New Haven is under human protection. Any species that threatens, you will have to deal with us. The news of humanity's intervention spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. Communication networks carried the story of the battle to every inhabited world. The reactions were immediate and intense. On peaceful worlds, the news was received with hope and relief. Species that had lived in fear of raiders and slavers suddenly had powerful protectors. Messages began arriving at human space from dozens of civilizations, asking for help or offering alliance. On predator worlds, the news caused panic and anger. The Krillian Empire had lost its most powerful fleet to an unknown species. Other raiding cultures began to reconsider their plans for expansion. The galaxy had a new dominant military power, and it was protecting the weak instead of conquering them. Captain Steve Parker received a promotion to Commodore and took command of the new human base in the Zephyrian system. His orders were simple: protect the colony and establish contact with other peaceful species in the region. Dr. Wright began working with Zephyrian scientists to understand their agricultural methods. The humans were amazed by the aliens' ability to grow food in almost any environment. In return, the humans shared their knowledge of defensive technology and military tactics. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Morrison briefed the Global Defense Council on the mission's success. The council voted unanimously to expand human protection operations to other threatened worlds. Humanity had found its role in galactic civilization not as conquerors, but as guardians. The Terran Protection Alliance was born from a single distress call. Within months, 27 peaceful species had joined the alliance, trading agricultural knowledge, scientific data, and cultural exchange for human military protection. The galaxy was becoming a safer place for those who chose to build instead of destroy. Admiral Sullivan returned to Earth as a hero, but she knew her work was just beginning. The galaxy was vast, and there were many more worlds that needed protection. The humans had announced themselves to the universe, and they had chosen to stand with the innocent against the predators. The age of human expansion had begun, but it would be an expansion of protection rather than conquest. The Deathworlders had come to the stars not to take but to give, and the galaxy would never be the same.